Hi everyone, my name is Rachel McDermott. I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here at Ocean Institute, which means that I help facilitate all of the programs that our public guests come. So when they come to Ocean Institute to visit, we help make lots of fun activities for them. Some of those activities are things called Wild Weekends, which we do about twice a month. This is a shortened version of one of our Wild Weekends called the Scoop on Poop. We do this during our summer programming, which is called Grossology. So in the summertime, when you come and visit us on a weekend, you get to learn all about the gross stuff in the ocean. So that's animals that make slime and have mucus and all kinds of gross stuff. So for today, we're gonna learn about the human digestive system. Now, animals on Earth all have digestive systems, especially mammals all have very similar ones. So you and I have very similar digestive systems to something like a whale, a dolphin, a dog, or a cat. Very, very similar. So I'm gonna walk through kind of the steps that your food takes through your body, and then I'm gonna show you how you can recreate your own digestive system at home with supplies that you probably have around your house. So the very first step of the digestive system is where food enters our body, and that is our mouth. So when you take a big bite of food, usually humans eat pretty big food. So if you take a bite of something like a sandwich, you can't just swallow a sandwich whole. You have to chew it. So that's why we have our teeth in our mouth. So our teeth act as grinders. They grind up our food into small bits. But grinding up our food into smaller bits is not quite good enough for our digestive system. You also have to mix it with spit or saliva in your mouth. And it's kind of gross, but in your mouth as you're chewing, your saliva is mixing with that food and it's turning it kind of liquidy. It's pretty gross. If you've ever seen anyone talk with their mouth full while they're eating, you'll see it. But that's really an important step because you need that for your food to travel through your body. You can't just, swallow that sandwich dry. It wouldn't pass through your body very comfortably or very easily. So chewing is the first step of the digestive system. After you swallow that kind of slimy, watery food, it travels down your throat in a big tube called your esophagus. And your esophagus actually uses really powerful muscles that you can't really even feel working that kind of push that food down that tube, and it has to go all the way down to the third step, which is your stomach. Now, many people think that your stomach does a lot of the digesting for you. Your stomach is actually kind of just a really fancy holding tank for your food. So your food travels all the way down, it kind of plops down into your stomach, and there it mixes with stomach acid. Now some people get afraid when they think of acid being inside their bodies. A lot of times acid sounds scary, but it's really important to have that in your stomach because it's breaking down enzymes or nutrients in your food for you so that it can travel through the rest of your body. So a good example of something that's acidic, if you don't know what I mean when I say acid, something that's very acidic that we all know and have tasted before is a lemon. So when you bite into a lemon, you kind of pucker up your face, it tastes really sour and bitter, and that is how you know something is acidic. So your stomach has acid very kind of similar to a lemon inside of it at all times. So inside your stomach kind of churns around, and that acid mixes with your food, and it's getting it ready to go to the final stages of your digestive system. So after the stomach, it moves on to your intestines. You have two different types of intestines. The first that it travels through is the small intestine. Now, the small intestine gets its name small because it's very narrow. It's also like a tube, kind of like your esophagus. It's very narrow, but it's very long. So don't let the word small trick you into thinking that it's a small organ. It's actually very, very long. If you were to take a small intestine and kind of stretch it out, it would be several feet long, sometimes even longer than you are tall. And it's all kind of coiled up right here in the middle of your abdomen, right here. And so the reason that your small intestine is so long is because it needs all the time, your food needs all the time it can get to travel through your body. And if it was just one little tiny tube, it wouldn't have enough time for your body to soak up all those good nutrients that you need to have energy and to grow and to be healthy. So your food travels through kind of like a maze of intestines, and there's these little things that are actually kind of like little hairs on the inside of the intestines that are grabbing the nutrients from your food. So as your food is passing through, your small intestine is taking all the nutrients and the water from your food to pass on for the rest of your body to use. After the small intestine is finished, it goes to the large intestine. The large intestine gets its name because it's quite a bit wider than the small intestine, and it is shorter in length. And the large intestine's job is kind of to take all the leftover stuff that your small intestines didn't think you'd need and kind of compact it into your body's waste. So as your food, or kind of your leftover food at this point, travels through the large intestine, it's getting kind of compacted. You can kind of think of this if you're playing with like Play-Doh and you mush the Play-Doh together in your hand, you make kind of a ball or like a log shape, and that's what your large intestine does. It takes all that leftover stuff that your body doesn't need and it squishes it together. And then as it gets to the very end of the large intestine, it's almost time for your digestive system to be at its end. And it kind of sits there. And at this point, it's just waste. There's nothing left in that food that your body can use, and now your body needs to get rid of it. It can't just sit there in your body. You don't want just this leftover gunk sitting in your body. So you have to get rid of it. And so you probably already guessed it, that waste that's sitting in the bottom of your large intestine is your poop. And so then you go to the bathroom, you get rid of that waste, and then your digestive system starts all over again with your next meal. So it's a really amazing system. It's very efficient. We hardly know that it's happening. And it's very important for all animals to kind of have that digestive system to get their nutrients and then to get rid of all the waste. And so poop is actually a really important thing. I know it's really gross. It's a gross topic, but poop is important because it gets rid of stuff in your body, not just excess food. It also gets rid of harmful bacteria that you can have in your body. There are good and bad bacteria. Your gut, all your intestines and your stomach is full of millions of teeny tiny bacteria. A lot of them are good. Some of them are not so good. So your digestive system through your poop helps you get rid of that. And animals actually can use their poop in some really interesting ways. So some animals that eat plants, so that would be an omnivore or an herbivore, they eat a lot of plants. Sometimes when they're eating really quickly, they might accidentally swallow and eat a seed. And so their body can't absorb or do anything with that seed. So their digestive system just moves it along and then they poop the seeds out. And so sometimes these animals, without even knowing it, when they poop and there's a seed in their poop, they're planting another plant right there. And it works really well because poop is actually part of something called the nitrogen cycle. So what that means is just a fancy term of recycling nutrients through the earth. So a good example of this that is used is like a cow. So a cow, eats a lot of grass, and then, the digestive system works, and then it poops. And most of its poop is made out of that grass because that's primarily what they eat. And then that poop, therefore, kind of goes back into the earth and helps more grass to grow. So nutrients are always being recycled. They never just go away. So even though your poop is gone, those nutrients are still kind of being recycled and used for something else, which is why poop is often used as a fertilizer. So you might hear, if you ever have visited a farm, or you know a farmer, you are a farmer, you might have heard of something called manure. That's usually cow poop. And farmers actually use that to help fertilize their crops. It makes their crops grow a little bit quicker, and it can help them grow a little bit fuller and more lush because those plant seeds are getting more nutrients than they might have got without the fertilizer. And so animals can use that poop in spreading seeds and fertilizing, and there are some more interesting ways that they can use it as well. Some animals, actually, this is really gross, I'm glad humans don't do this, but some animals will actually cover their babies with their own poop so that they can identify their smell and they know that that's their babies. Some animals build their house out of poop, some animals collect poop and put inside their house. There's all different kinds of function for poop, but that is the scoop on poop. And we'll move on to making our own digestive system with stuff that you have at home. All right, so to make your own digestive system at home, you just need a few supplies. A lot of these you probably already have at home. You'll need a big mixing bowl, a potato masher. If you don't have a potato masher, you can use your hands. It's a little bit more messy. I like to use the potato masher. I also have some scraps of bread. You don't have to use leftovers. You can just use a slice of white bread. These are just kind of leftovers I had. And then you will need a can of canned pasta, so something like SpaghettiOs. This is creamy tomato soup with pasta, something that has chunks in it. And then I have 2 squirt bottles here. One is full of water mixed with dish soap. You can kind of see the bubbles. And then this one is full of vinegar. I also have a pair of pantyhose that I have here. And just a warning for anybody who's willing to give up their pantyhose, you will have to cut these, so don't use any pair that you would like to wear again. So you'll need that along with a pair of scissors to cut them, and then a blender, of course. And just as a warning, this is a kind of messy activity, so I am using a tray that has the lips on the side to keep the mess contained. At home, you can use a baking sheet. You can do it directly on your counter, but just as a warning, it will be a little bit more to clean up that way. So these are all that you need to recreate your digestive system at home. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to do the first step of the digestive system, which is our chewing. So you're gonna take your food supply. So I'm gonna take my creamy soup, I'm gonna put it into our mixing bowl here. And then I'm gonna take our bread and I'm gonna kind of rip it up into little pieces, throw it in there. And you want the pieces to be pretty small, so probably about this big, like a postage stamp size or smaller, because you do want them to kind of be mashed up in the next step. So this step represents what you ate for lunch. Now this is kind of an interesting lunch, but let's say that you had some pieces of bread, maybe with some tomato soup, maybe a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup for lunch today. And so now you're going to put that into your mouth and you're going to chew it up. So I'm going to take my potato masher, I'm going to mash it up really well. I'm going to try to get all those big chunks of bread as small and mushed up as I can. And there is pasta in my soup as well. So I'm going to try to mush all those kind of big chunks up and make it kind of, almost kind of like baby food consistency, I would say. And you can kind of see here, if you guys can see that. So I have those chunks in there still. I'm just going to keep mushing and mushing. But our mouths don't only just do that crushing like we learned. So this potato masher we can pretend is like our teeth. We're crushing up those big pieces. But we also have our saliva that we have to think about. So I'm going to take my bottle with that just soap and water. We're going to pretend that this is saliva or spit. And I'm just going to squirt a little bit in there. This is going to help the food to become a little bit more liquidy. Like we talked about, that helps it kind of move through the digestive system a little bit easier. Almost done here. All the chunks don't have to be gone because we are going to switch it over to the blender soon. But I'll show you kind of what mine looks like. So a lot of the chunks are kind of small. They're kind of, they look as if someone has chewed them up, which is exactly what you would expect when you chew something up into your mouth. All right, so on to the blender. So after you chew your food and you swallow it, it's going to go down that esophagus and into the stomach. So I'm going to pour this. We're going to pretend going down the esophagus. The blender is going to be our stomach. Pour that in there. We don't make too big of a mess. All right, perfect. So now that our food is in our stomach, it also has to have that stomach acid with it. So I'm going to take my vinegar. Vinegar is another example of a food item that's very acidic, much like a lemon. So I'm just going to squirt a little bit of vinegar in there, just like our stomach has some stomach acid. And that's going to kind of help to dissolve that food. Now, our stomachs are not like a blender, so the food in your stomach isn't rolling around super fast. But you have to remember that when food is in your stomach, it does sit there for quite some time. And so we don't have the time in this video to wait and let this sit. So I'm going to kind of recreate what it looks like kind of fast forwarded in your stomach. So we're going to blend this up. And you don't need a lot of blending. You want it now to be kind of a smoothie consistency. I know it's kind of gross, not a very good smoothie, but you want it to be fairly thick. You don't want it to be too liquidy or else you'll have trouble with this next part going through the intestines. So now we fast forwarded time, your food has sat in your stomach with that stomach acid, it's kind of dissolved, it's getting those enzymes, those nutrients broken down. It's now ready to go through the intestines. So I'm going to take my pantyhose and I'm going to cut one of the legs off at the base of kind of where the leg meets kind of a hip area. So I'm just going to snip one leg off. And then at the other end where the toes go in the pantyhose, I'm going to cut a tiny little slit. So I don't want to cut the full thing. I'm gonna almost just cut a little corner, kind of like a frosting bag or like a tube of toothpaste. So I'm just gonna cut a little corner off here. There we are. And now we have our intestines. So we're only gonna use one pantyhose to signify both the small and the large intestine. But we're gonna go ahead and pour our stomach contents into our small intestine. So the easiest way to do this is to kind of open up the bigger end of the pantyhose, kind of like a little cup, and we're gonna pour some in. And you don't need a lot to do this. Do you need my help? Sure, actually that'd be great. So I'm gonna have some help pouring in here. And you don't need a lot to go in. You don't actually want too much, it will be too difficult. So just like a little. Yep, that's probably good right there. Thank you. All right. So now I have our stomach contents. They've moved down to my small intestine so you can kind of see it's dripping a little bit. And we can pretend that this liquid that's kind of dripping out is the nutrients and water that's being absorbed by the intestine. So like we talked about, as your food moves through the intestine, it's grabbing onto those nutrients. Those are things like carbohydrates and fats and proteins, things that your body needs to be healthy. And then it's kind of passing along everything else. So here comes the messy part. Here comes the kind of gross part. You're gonna take your fingers and you're just kind of inch that food along your intestines. And there will be lots of juice kind of coming out, which is why I recommended the tray underneath. And so as that liquid kind of comes out, you'll feel your food is kind of getting a little bit more compressed. So it's kind of becoming like a little ball of food at this point. And so that's the small intestine's job. We're taking all the nutrients and then we have to pass it along to the large intestine. All right, so it's still dripping a little bit of juice, but not as much. So we can go ahead and say now that this, if you guys can see that big bulge, now we're here in the large intestine, the final stage of the digestive system. So we're gonna squeeze and move that along through the large intestine. It's getting a little bit harder for me to move because it's more compressed, it's not as liquidy, which is exactly what really happens inside your body. So your large intestine has to work really, really hard to get all that food down. We're almost there. And you'll notice that when it comes out the other side, there won't be as much as there was when we poured it in, because a lot of it was juice. And so our body has absorbed that. And so now waste is a lot smaller in portion than what you eat. So you never kind of poop as much as you ate because your body absorbed most of it. All right, coming down to the end here. So now you want to push it all the way to that teeny tiny little slit that you cut earlier. And then you're going to just kind of push it out and plop it onto your tray. And I'll hold it up here. I don't want my juice to fall too bad. And right there is the waste that came out. So kind of like the poop. So as you can kind of see, if you guys can see, I can come up, we can do a close-up if you can't. It's just kind of unidentifiable food at this point. So all the nutrients have been taken. This is just waste that your body couldn't do anything with, and it passed it through. So now you just recreated your own digestive system. I hope that you guys enjoyed this and learned some fun stuff, and that you can recreate this at home with your own supplies. All right guys, so that's it for me today. Thank you so much for joining us for our virtual learning content. We hope that you guys are enjoying this as much as we are for making them for you. We are very excited to share all this fun stuff with you. If you're enjoying this and you'd like to see them keep being made, if you're able to, please click the donate button right here below. It really does help us. It helps keep our animals alive. It helps us make more things like this for you, and then hopefully to open up sooner rather than later to have all of our guests back. Thank you guys so much for watching.